Thanks, Renee. Airbnb says it plans to form 100 home-sharing clubs in cities across the U.S. next year. It's hoping its supporters will come together to head off on regulatory crackdowns that we'll talk about in a moment. The clubs are an extension of the multi-million-dollar campaign Airbnb organized ahead of Tuesday's election in San Francisco, which included an initiative to restrict short-term rentals. Voters rejected that bill. And here in New York City, the city council is looking to crack down on unscrupulous Airbnb users, claiming that over 4 years, 3/4 of the site's listings were in violation of state law. Helen Rosenthal is a New York City council member, is also my council member from the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Councilwoman, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me on.
I traveled all through Europe in the spring. I stayed at Airbnb almost exclusively. I saved money instead of going to hotels, met some great people. Tell me why people who want to visit New York City, which has some of the most highest hotel rates in the nation, can't do that.
Well, my goodness, they can. The New York State law is that anyone can rent out a room in their home for fewer than 30 days.
Okay.
So if you live in a residential building and your kids are off in college now, like mine are, you can rent out a room on Airbnb as long as you stay there.
That's the key.
Yeah, so that way you can meet people.
Okay, but is this law outdated? Because why, if you own an apartment, let's call it a condo, so it's not a rental situation, why shouldn't you be able to rent it out?
Because you have next door neighbors who think of their building as their home. So when you rent out your home, you, as a condo owner, you're putting 3 people at risk.
Okay, go ahead. But shouldn't that be the determination of the condo board? Because they have restrictions. So why do we need the city and the state to enforce this?
Right. So certainly it's a good idea to go to your condo board to get approval. My guess would be your condo board would say no, because when you buy an apartment and you live in a building, you're expecting to live in a building with other residents, not next door to a hotel room with a revolving door of tourists. So let's think of it this way. When you rent out your whole apartment, you're putting 3 people at risk. One, you're putting the tourist at risk. Let's say there's a fire. Well, if they were in a hotel, there are codes that hotels follow. There's a sprinkler in every room. There are directions on the back of the door that are really big that tell you how to get out and tell you what to do should there be an emergency.
But do you want, so let's look at it this way.
So you're protecting the tourists.
But are you willing to say, okay, the current laws are not being enforced or not being honored, but maybe we need to change the laws a little bit? This is the same conversation the city council had over Uber a little bit.
It's really very different.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I understand how the marketing could get us caught up in thinking that it's the same story. The big difference is in terms of apartment rentals, we have a law on the books that says you cannot rent out your entire apartment for fewer than 30 days. And that law is on the books for a reason. I mean, we do have the 3 direct problems, right? That somebody could get evicted from their home if their board had not approved. You put the tourist at risk, and you put the neighbors at risk because now they don't know who's coming in next door. But the larger issue and the larger economic issue, and it's why I feel very comfortable for the very high violation fine.
It's a $50,000
to my
fine.
Bill, right? Is that fundamentally what's happening with the illegal use is that we're taking affordable homes off the market. So let's think about the Attorney General's data scrape of Airbnb's website. What they found is that 30% of the users take in 60% of the revenue. In other words, they're renting out multiple apartments night after night.
But should the city council, it's going to be very hard to stop a movement that people seem to like. So should the city council and the state look at revising the laws to make it work? Because what you're suggesting in many ways is sort of an Airbnb's kind of concept because of the number of people doing this.
So look, Airbnb at this juncture has 2 choices. They can either have their website, right, because they hide behind this shield of, oh, it's just a website, and we're following the FTC regulations. We're just a website.
Their argument is they are introducing a buyer and a seller, basically, and
Sure.
they're the middleman and take
Sure,
a piece of it.
and you know they're neglecting to follow the laws in New York City when they do that. So they can either have their website internally have a program to take off the illegal bad actors, or they can turn over that data to the city, and we'll enforce the law. Here's a great example.
We're running out of time. I want to get to two questions. One, the city is losing tax revenue, correct? In theory,
No
as a hotel.
relevance.
No relevance to you.
No,
And
let me tell you
what about
why.
the hotel industry, though? Because I assume the hotel industry.
It's just no relevance. In my district, to me, it's not relevant. In my district alone, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, I've done the analysis. Over the last 5 years, we've lost 1,000 units of affordable housing each year. I was at a tenant meeting, so that's 5,000 overall. And if we're going to put on a fine, I think $50,000 in order to keep a unit in the rental market is none too small.
What about the impact on tourism? You know, if you come to New York, you know what the hotel rates are in this city. They are just marching higher and higher.
A quarter of the rentals on Airbnb are legal. I support those rentals. When Airbnb...
So legal is you rent out a room as long as you're there.
Yeah, because you're taking responsibility for the unit and who's coming in.
Is there a system in place that you would say if the condo or if the landlord says this is okay, then if you follow these rules, we'll allow it? How do we get more tourists who can't afford to come to New York right now take advantage of this?
As I say, you could go on Airbnb and you can rent out legally, and I'm sure plenty of people do, and in those cases, terrific. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is going to a tenant meeting, as I did last week, with a building with about 100 units. It's a residence building. And the tenants tell me that 20 of the units have been taken off the market. They're no longer being used as residences, and instead they're being used as hotel rooms. They don't know who's coming in the door. They have parties, loud parties that go on at night, and they have no recourse.
We have heard
and from my perspective, we've just lost 20 units of affordable housing.
But the question comes back down to...
And that's the crisis that I care about as a representative. Sure.
Is affordable housing, but to pin it on Airbnb, there's a lot of other steps that need to be.
I pin it on many things, but right in this example, there were 23,000 or 33,000. I don't know what the current numbers are, but in the if 30,000 of the rentals are on Airbnb and 2/3 are illegal.
So what
that's
do you say?
20,000 apartments that we could bring back.
With 30 seconds left, what do you say to people who say, this is yet another government crackdown on technology that is clearly very popular, and it's influenced by large businesses, which typically are the ones who go after the smaller startups? Uber, for example, which is a large business itself, and the taxi industry. Was as an example.
Irrelevant.
You're thinking...
Sorry, it just has no relevance to it at all. Look at the website Reddit. Reddit takes responsibility for what's on its website. It takes off any racist comments.
Councilwoman Rosenthal.
Airbnb should take off its illegal posting.
Very good interview. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much.
I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arise Exchange. We'll see you tomorrow.